Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
For weeks, the Home Office, under Amber Rudd, said repeatedly that they were not aware of any Windrush deportations, although they were checking. Today, the Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, has admitted that more than 60 people caught up in the Windrush scandal may indeed have been wrongly deported, and there could be more. When he was appointed last month, Mr Javid said he would scrap the Home Office's so-called hostile environment, a policy which led to so many people who came from the Caribbean before 1973 to fall foul of the immigration authorities. But if the case of one grandfather we have spoken to who lost his home is anything to go by, the policy is still being keenly felt. Simon Israel has this report.
At the age of 59, Lloyd Grant has become a sofa surfer, homeless, jobless, a resident but not a UK citizen.
I haven't been able to do nothing at all. In this situation, the system that I'm set up, I haven't worked, I can't sign on, I can't do nothing.
He's a Windrush child and finds himself 40 or so years on trying to make sense of Home Office promises to give him back his life.
My mum and dad been through hardship, coming over this country, work all their life in the coal, just to set up a home for us. So it's very, very, very sad that the British government treating us like this.
Today, the Home Affairs Select Committee wanted to know how the new Home Secretary intended to treat Lloyd Grant's generation.
I want to, number one, help those people that are in that cohort that still need documentation, that are contacting us. That's priority number one. And then in terms of acts of the past that may have been wrong, priority number two is deportation and removals. And then number three, it will be to look properly at any wrongful detentions if there were any.
And on one of those priorities, the Home Secretary had a different story to his predecessor, who told the same committee they had not found any deportations, but were still checking. Today, 2 weeks on, Mr Javid revealed that officials had now found 63 cases of those who may have been wrongly deported.
Of those records, have you now checked them all?
My understanding is that all records, all the 8,000, have been checked, and so far from that, there's the 63 number I gave you earlier. That said, I have asked officials to make absolutely sure that when they check the records, the 8,000, that it is really 63 and there might not be others there as well. So I could not give you a guarantee that that number cannot change.
There are now, according to the Home Secretary, some 4,500 potential Windrush cases who came here as children. Lloyd Grant is just one of them. He's grappling with how to contribute to the Home Office's consultation on a compensation scheme. But how do you compensate someone who says the Home Office denied him the chance to attend his mother's funeral in Jamaica?
The geezer warned me and said, if you go, you won't be able to come back. So that, at the time I was very nervous and things like that. And one of my sisters said, ain't you going to the funeral? I said, I can't go, because if I go, I won't be able to come back.
So the 59-year-old is now reliant on his brothers and sisters. They came to the UK at other times and have not suffered the misery meted out by the government to someone who has worked and paid his taxes like any other citizen in the UK.
Well, now, a short time ago, we asked the Prime Minister why the government had previously said no one had been deported and why it took so long to get any answers.
It was important, of course, that what the Home Office has done is looked very carefully across a period of time, and this was what was made clear at the time, to assess whether any such action had been taken in relation to anybody who was from the Windrush generation. As you will know, we've been very clear that the Windrush generation are British, they are part of us, they have a right to be here.
The Prime Minister speaking about the Windrush scandal earlier.
Now, the Home Secretary today revealed that up to 63 people could have been deported from the UK as a result of the Windrush scandal. Sajid Javid was facing questions from MPs from the Home Affairs Select Committee. He also admitted the figure could actually be higher as officials work through more than 8,000 cases, fueling fresh calls for a public inquiry.
This is the beginning of a new life.
But no end to the Windrush scandal as fresh revelations emerged today. 63 relatives of Commonwealth immigrants wrongly deported back to the Caribbean. The new Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, forced to admit that that figure may rise.
I don't want to speculate on it, but I would say it's not a final number at this point. It could change because the work on those records is still ongoing. I've asked officials to be absolutely certain and thorough and look at every record.
Yvette Cooper, the Labour chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, who claimed the scalp of the last Home Secretary over this very issue, smelt blood.
You know, if the state has locked people up wrongly, the British state has taken away people's liberty wrongly because of the Windrush mistakes, surely we need to know how many people that's applied to.
Well, I agree with that. Of course we need to know, and we will get to the bottom of that.
Pressure on the Prime Minister, a former Home Secretary. During a press conference with the Turkish president, she was reminded she'd previously said she wasn't aware of anyone being deported. Now we know they were.
It was important to get that work, to do that work, to get that work right. But I reiterate what we have said consistently. The Windrush generation have a right to be here. They are British. They are part of us.
The Windrush scandal has put the entire immigration policy under intense scrutiny. The then Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, resigned when she wrongly told Parliament that her department had no removal targets. Glenda Caesar was one of those ordered to leave the country, even though she'd been in the UK for 50 years. She's now been told she can stay. She's appalled by the government's handling of the issue.
They need to get a proper team in there dealing with the administration errors that need to be sorted out ASAP.
With thousands of immigration records still being checked by the Home Office, the numbers of people identified as wrongly deported or detained are expected to rise, and so the calls for a public inquiry multiply.
This isn't just a question of official incompetence, this is policy, and this is a department that has been allowed to run riot for many, many years under different governments. There needs to be some form of public commission of inquiry that's independent, that looks into how we got into this mess and how we're going to prevent this from happening again in the future.
The Windrush generation who arrived in Britain to stay are only now finding out the full extent of the errors which forced many to actually leave decades later. Angus Walker, News at 10, Westminster.
I've been